Okay, let's talk about a feeling that I think we all know really, really well. It's that feeling of being completely overwhelmed. When a goal or a project is just so massive, so huge that you get paralyzed. You don't even know where to start. And so you just don't. I mean, think about it. You start a project with all this energy, right? You've got the vision, you're excited, but then, boom, resistance hits. Maybe it comes from other people pushing back, or maybe, and this is often the case, it's just your own discouragement creeping in. All that momentum just dies. And that passion project? Well, now it's just sitting there, unfinished, for weeks, maybe months, heck, maybe even years. So to really understand how to get unstuck, we're going to look at this incredible moment in history. Picture this. After decades and decades of being in exile, the people of Israel finally get to return to their homeland. And they have one huge mission: to rebuild their central temple in Jerusalem. I mean, this was the very heart of their culture, their faith, and it was just a pile of ruins. You can imagine the excitement was just off the charts. And honestly, they had a fantastic start. I mean, in 538 BC, they get the official green light, a royal decree. Just 2 years later, by 536 BC, the foundation is laid. They're making real progress. But then, crickets, nothing. For 16 straight years, the whole project is just abandoned. Their enemies on the outside were actively trying to shut them down, and on the inside, well, the people just lost heart. This grand mission came to a complete, dead halt. Now, what's fascinating is that during those 16 years, the people didn't actually stop working. They just shifted their priorities. So while the temple's foundation was out there literally gathering weeds, they were busy building these beautiful, comfortable, even lavish homes for themselves. And their excuse was always, the time isn't right to rebuild God's house. They had plenty of energy for their own comfort, just zero energy for the main goal. So that's the big question, isn't it? How do you restart something after 16 years of apathy and failure? I mean, you'd think the solution would be obvious. Get more money, more security, maybe a better political situation. But the message that finally broke this stalemate, it had absolutely nothing to do with any of that. It was all about tapping into a completely different kind of power. And this is it. This was the game-changing message that came from the prophet Zechariah. Let's really break this down. When he says not by might, he's talking about collective strength, like an army. And not by power, that's about individual strength, your own resources. The message couldn't be clearer. All your human efforts, your best laid plans, all your resources, that's not what's going to get this done. The breakthrough is going to come from a totally different source, by my spirit. Okay, so what does spirit even mean in this context? Well, the original Hebrew word is ruach. And this is just a brilliant illustration. Ruach is the exact same word for breath or wind. So this isn't some vague mystical concept. It's the life force. It's literally the thing that animates you. It's what fills your lungs and lets you move. It's the difference between a lifeless body and a living, breathing person. Here's a great way to think about it. You know those giant, wavy, inflatable tube men you see at a car dealership? When the pump is off, what is it? It's just a lifeless pile of fabric on the ground, right? No strength, no structure, no nothing. But the second you pump air, breath, ruach, into it, it shoots up, it stands tall, it starts moving. That's the picture here. The people were that collapsed, defeated pile on the ground. The spirit was the breath that inflated them, that gave them the internal motivation to finally get up and get back to work. Okay, that's great. So now you've got this new internal motivation. But what about all the external problems? I mean, the enemies, the political opposition, they didn't just disappear. That was still a giant mountain blocking their path. So how does this new kind of power deal with obstacles that seem, impossible? Well, the message continues with this just incredible promise. And notice, it's not saying, oh, just ignore the mountain, pretend it's not there. No, it's talking directly to the obstacle itself, and it's declaring that this massive, insurmountable problem, it will become level ground. But how? And this is the cool part. This wasn't just some nice-sounding poetry. This is exactly what happened in history. So get this. As soon as they start working again, their enemies do the exact same thing they did before. They write a letter to the new king, King Darius, to get the project shut down permanently. This was the mountain, right? It looked like a total repeat of the past. But then, the most amazing reversal happens. The king orders a search of the royal archives. And what do they find? They find the original legally binding decree from the first king, Cyrus, that not only approved the project, but ordered it to be paid for out of the royal treasury. So the very attack that was meant to destroy the project actually became the source of its guaranteed funding and official protection. The mountain literally became a plain. So the external obstacles are gone. Amazing. But there was still one more huge hurdle to get over. And this one was internal. It was the people's own crushing sense of disappointment. And this right here is the final piece of the puzzle when it comes to overcoming that feeling of being overwhelmed.
Now that sounds a little strange, doesn't it? I mean, after everything they went through, they finally get to rebuild. Why on earth would anyone look at this fresh start with contempt? Well, the reason comes down to two things: memory and comparison.
See, the older folks in the crowd, they remember the first temple, Solomon's temple, and it was legendary. A magnificent structure built when the nation was at its absolute peak of wealth and power, truly a wonder of the ancient world. And now they're looking at this humble little foundation for the new temple being built by a broke, struggling community. And to them, it just looked pathetic. The historical records say they actually wept out loud, not with joy, but with disappointment. Their memory of past glory was absolutely crushing their hope for the future.
And this is where we get the question that just cuts right to the heart of the whole problem. It reframes everything. God is essentially saying, hey, you are looking at this completely wrong. You're comparing this small beginning to a glorious finished product from the past. But me, I'm just celebrating the fact that you're starting. That's what matters. The value wasn't in the size of the project, it was in the faithfulness of the new beginning.
All right, so let's pull all this together. We've got three big ideas here. We need an internal power that's not our own. We have to trust that those huge mountains in our way can become flat ground. And we absolutely cannot despise small, humble beginnings. So, what does that actually look like for us in practice today? The final image in this whole story is so powerful. We see the leader of the project, a guy named Zerubbabel, and he's holding a plumb line. Now, what on earth is a plumb line? It's not some grand blueprint for the entire temple. It's not a king's scepter. It is one of the most basic tools in construction. It's just a weight on a string. And its only job is to help you make sure that the one single brick you are laying right now is perfectly true and straight. And that is the ultimate takeaway. The way they broke through 16 years of paralysis was by radically shifting their focus. They stopped looking up at the giant mountain in front of them and getting overwhelmed. They stopped looking back at the glorious past and getting depressed. Instead, they just picked up their simple plumb line and focused all their attention on doing one small thing perfectly, right here, right now. So, the question for you and for me is exactly the same. Instead of being paralyzed by the massive size of your goal or discouraged by failures in the past, what if you just focused on your plumb line? What is the one small, true, faithful thing you can do today? Because this ancient story tells us that when you do that, you're not just doing a small task, you're tapping into a power that can overcome any stall, no matter how long it's been.